Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Dan the Glassman, and you're watching The Glassman's World. Today I want to do something a little bit new and different. We're going to be having story time with The Glassman's World. So today we're going to be reading a little bit of The Perfection of Yoga by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. So before I get started, I just want to open up in this chant. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. So this book here, The Perfection of Yoga, was the first book that I ever read which introduced me into Krishna consciousness. This is the book that has helped to awaken my mind, to help to awaken my spiritual path. And so this here I want to just read to you and just to share. So this is The Perfection of Yoga by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Yoga of Divine Love. A world-renowned yoga master cuts through the commercialism that now clouds the real meaning of yoga. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, explains that beyond the postures and exercises, the ancient teachings of yoga aim at lasting, loving union with the Supreme. The Perfection of Yoga. All the many different books that A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has written or translated into English text. These are the contents here. Yoga as rejected by Arjuna, yoga as work and devotion, yoga as meditation on Krishna, yoga as body and mind control, yoga as freedom from duality and designation, the fate of the ancestral yogi, yoga as reestablishing relations with Krishna, the perfection of yoga. So this is a very short book. We probably won't read all of it here. We'll just get into it a little bit. So number 1, yoga as rejected by Arjuna. There have been many yoga systems popularized in the Western world, especially in this century, but none of them have actually taught the perfection of yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, teaches Arjuna directly the perfection of yoga. If we actually want to participate in the perfection of the yoga system in Bhagavad Gita, we will find the authoritative statements of the Supreme Person. It is certainly remarkable that the perfection of yoga was taught in the middle of a battlefield. It was taught to Arjuna, the warrior, just before Arjuna was to engage in a fratricidal battle. Out of sentiment, Arjuna was thinking, why should I fight against my own kinsmen? That reluctance to fight was due to Arjuna's illusion, and just to eradicate that illusion, Sri Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to him. One can just imagine how little time must have elapsed while Bhagavad Gita was being spoken. All the warriors on both sides were poised to fight, so there was very little time indeed. At the utmost 1 hour. Within this 1 hour, the whole Bhagavad Gita was discussed, and Sri Krishna set forth the perfection of all yoga systems to his friend Arjuna. At the end of this great discourse, Arjuna set aside his misgivings and fought. However, within the discourse, when Arjuna heard the explanation of the meditational system of yoga, how to sit down, how to keep the body straight, how to keep the eyes half closed, and how to gaze at the tip of the nose without diverting one's attention. All this conducted in a secluded place alone. He replied, and I'll save you from my horrible translation. Oh, Madhusudan, the system of the yoga, which you have summarized, appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. This is important. We must always remember that we are in a material circumstance wherein at every moment our mind is subject to agitation. Actually, we are not in a very comfortable situation. We are always thinking that by changing our situation, we will overcome our mental agitation. And we are always thinking that when we reach a certain point, all mental agitations will disappear. But it is the nature of the material world that we cannot be free from anxiety. Our dilemma is that we are always trying to make a solution to our problems, but this universe is so designed that these solutions never come. Not being a cheater, being very frank and open, Arjuna tells Krishna that the system of yoga which he has described is not possible for him to execute. In speaking to Krishna, it is significant that Arjuna addresses him as Madhusudan, indicating that the Lord is the killer of the demon Madhu. It is notable that God's names are innumerable, for he is often named according to his activities. Indeed, God has innumerable names because he has innumerable activities. We are only parts of God, and we cannot even remember how many activities we engage in from our childhood to the present. The eternal God is unlimited, and since his activities are also unlimited, he has unlimited names, of which Krishna is the chief. Then why is Arjuna addressing him as Madhusudan when, being Krishna's friend, he could address him directly as Krishna? The answer is that Arjuna considers his mind to be like a great demon, such as the demon Madhu. If it were possible for Krishna to kill the demon called the mind, then Arjuna would be able to attain the perfection of yoga. My mind is much stronger than this demon Madhu, Arjuna is saying. Please, if you could kill him, then it would be possible for me to execute this yoga system. Even the mind of a great man like Arjuna is always agitated, as Arjuna himself says, where the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. It is indeed a fact that the mind is always telling us to go here, go there, do this, do that. It is always telling us which way to turn. Thus, the sum and substance of the yoga system is to control the agitated mind. In the meditational yoga system, the mind is controlled by focusing on the supersoul. That is the whole purpose of yoga. But Arjuna says that controlling this mind is more difficult than stopping the wind from blowing. One can imagine a man stretching out his arms trying to stop a hurricane. Are we to assume that Arjuna is simply not sufficiently qualified to control his mind? The actual fact is that we cannot begin to understand the immense qualifications of Arjuna. After all, he was a personal friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a highly elevated position and is one that cannot be at all attained by one without great qualifications. In addition to this, Arjuna was renowned as a great warrior and administrator, He was such an intelligent man that he could understand Bhagavad Gita within 1 hour, whereas at the present moment, great scholars cannot even understand it in the course of a lifetime. Yet Arjuna was thinking that controlling the mind was simply not possible for him. Are we then to assume that what was impossible for Arjuna is a more advanced age is possible for us in this degenerate age? We should not for one moment think we are in Arjuna's category. We are 1,000 times inferior. Moreover, there is no record of Arjuna having executed the yoga system at any time. At the same time, Arjuna was praised by Krishna as the only man worthy of understanding Bhagavad Gita. What was Arjuna's great qualification? Sri Krishna says, "You are my devotee. You are my very dear friend." Despite this qualification, Arjuna refused to execute the meditational yoga system described by Sri Krishna. What then are we to conclude? Are we to despair the mind's over being controlled? No, it can be controlled, and the process is this Krishna consciousness. The mind must be fixed always in Krishna. Insofar as the mind is absorbed in Krishna, it has obtained the perfection of yoga. Now when we turn to the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 12th canto and find Sukadeva Goswami telling Maharaj Pariksit that in the Golden Age, the Satya Yuga, people were living for 100,000 years, and at that time, when advanced living entities lived for such lengths of time, it was possible to execute this meditational system of yoga. But what was achieved in the Satya Yuga by this meditational process, and in the following Yuga, the Treta Yuga, by offering of great sacrifices, and in the next Yuga, the Dwapara Yuga, by temple worship, would be achieved at the present time in this Kali Yuga by simple chanting the names of God. Hare Kirtan, Hare Krishna. So from authoritative sources, we learn that this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, is the embodiment of the perfection of yoga for this age. Today, we have great difficulties living 50 or 60 years. A man may live at the utmost 80 or 100 years. In addition, these brief years are always fraught with anxiety, with difficulties due to circumstances of war, pestilence, famine, and so many other disturbances. We are also not very intelligent, and at the same time, we're unfortunate. These are the characteristics of man living in Kali Yuga, a degraded age. So properly speaking, we can never obtain success in this meditational yoga system described by Krishna. At the utmost, we can only gratify our personal whims by some pseudo-adaptation of the system. Thus, people are paying money to attend some class in gymnastic exercises and deep breathing, and they're happy if they think they can lengthen their lifetimes by a few years or enjoy better sex life. But we must understand that this is not the actual yoga system. In this age, that meditational system cannot be properly executed. Instead, all of the perfections of that system can be realized through bhakti yoga, the sublime process of Krishna consciousness, specifically mantra yoga, the glorification of Sri Krishna through chanting of Hare Krishna. This is recommended in Vedic scriptures and introduced by great authorities like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, the Bhagavad Gita proclaims that the Mahatmas, the great souls, are always chanting the glories of the Lord. If one wants to be a Mahatma in terms of the Vedic literature, in terms of Bhagavad Gita, and in terms of the great authorities, then one has to adopt this process of Krishna consciousness and of chanting Hare Krishna. But if we're content at making a show of meditation by sitting very straight in a lotus position and going into a trance like some sort of performer, then that is a different thing. But we should understand that such show bottle performances have nothing to do with the actual perfection of yoga. The material disease cannot be cured by artificial medicine. We have to take the real cure straight from Krishna. And I'll leave it there since we've got the little one waking up here. So on the next reading, we'll read chapter 2, Yoga as Work and Devotion. Thank you so much for joining me in this story time of the perfection of yoga. I'm Dan the Glass Man. This is the Glass Man's World. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Many blessings for 2023.